Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the September 10th meeting of the Warren County Building Code Appeals Board. Would like to adopt the agenda.
Well, let's do the chairman first.
The chairman's stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. We need to elect a chairman because Mr. Klein is, in Mr. Klein's absence, we have to, the board every time has to adopt a new chairperson. So this time I'd like to make a motion for the board to adopt a chairman.
I make a motion that we adopt Art Sefelt as the acting chairman for this meeting.
I second.
We have a second.
I second.
Okay. And I'd like to move on to the adoption of the.
Well, so is it all
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Now we'd like to move on to the adoption of the agenda.
I make a motion we adopt the agenda as stated.
Or perhaps if I could make a suggestion that we adopt the agenda as stated with the following amendments: to approve the meeting date and to add discussion and consideration of the election of a chair and a vice chair.
So ordered.
Is there a second to his?
I second the motion with the amendments.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And do approval of the meeting dates now?
If you like, but we should do those other procedural things before the actual hearing.
Okay, so we need to set a date for.
Well, we need to just have the board approve today's meeting date.
Okay.
The motion would be, I move that today's meeting date is approved.
Okay.
So ordered.
I second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then we'd want someone to make a motion to make somebody the chair and someone the vice chair for basically this coming year up through next July.
Do we need to have more members active to?
No, you don't.
Okay.
I mean, you could defer this if you want to, but we were actually supposed to do it in July, so I would recommend that we did it today.
So, okay, the question I have is, we did this back in
November.
November, so.
So you would do it in November, you're supposed to do it every July.
Okay.
So when July comes back around again, we're supposed to do it again.
Okay. So, I guess we need to make a motion to adopt a president.
Well,
Or
perhaps you entertain a motion to have someone be the chair and someone be the vice chair.
okay.
So I make a motion that we have George Klein as chair, Art Sefelt as vice chair.
I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay. We move on to the minutes of the meeting. Okay, can we make a motion that the minutes of the meeting of July 18th are in order?
Are you asking for a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll start the public hearing this time. This public hearing is requested by Martha Buracker, under Buracker Construction, in question to the property owned by Kristie Atwood, located at 3452, I'm sorry, property location is 1255 Pilgrim's Way, Bentonville, Virginia. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Buracker, Mr. Francis, would you guys like to open up with your statement?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm back again to
talk to me a little bit more. I was here in, pardon me, I don't think I need that mic. So when I was here in July, I was clean shaven. And now you'll see I got a little bit of scruff. I'm trying to look like Mr. Safel here a little bit more. I thought maybe that would get a little bit more favor for my client, but we'll see what happens. So appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to talk. Is it echoey on your end?
Yeah, I knew it.
Can we kill that?
Yeah, it's a green button right here on the top.
Oh, up here?
Maybe inside.
How about I just...
There you go.
Here it is.
All right. So I was here, we were here in July on the appeal for Miss Atwood. Miss Atwood appealed, and that came after a long history of different things that goes back over a year ago. I think I kind of replayed that history of events the last time I was here. Would you all find it to be helpful if we talk about that again so we know kind of where we stand today, or is everybody up to speed?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay, so on July 18th, you gentlemen heard Miss Atwood's appeal, offering 60 potential code violations that exist at her house. And you all decided to revert back to what was a June 13th NOV that included, I believe, 13 code violations. 12 code violations. And a year ago, when I showed up to represent the Burackers, we talked about those 12 code violations in that June 13th, 2018 NOV. And we looked at them and we noticed that, well, the state building code requires that you cite a code section for each noted violation. And so that whittled those 12 down to 6. This board acknowledged that 6 of those were made in error because they came without a code citation, and 6 of them were rescinded and 6 of them were upheld. And my clients appealed those 6, again disagreeing with this board and with the building department that they were actual code violations. We took those to the state, and then of course the state kicked it all the way back down here because of conflicts of interest issues. And so when we came here on July 18th, 2019, Ms. Atwood again presented her 60 some odd alleged code violations that were never found by Mr. Beam or a building official for the county, but by a third-party inspector who was not present. He did not testify as to why he found those code violations. His expert report was admitted without him being here. And you all looked at that, took it for what it was, and reverted back to your decision from July 2018 that, well, if we felt that those 6 code violations that we upheld on the Buracker's first appeal, we were confident in those a year ago, we might as well be confident in them now. Mr. Spell, you weren't around for that first round, but you were around for the second round. And so that's how we get the 6 that we've got now, is that out of those 60, this board decided that it was just going to stand firm on the 6 that it found a year ago. Regardless of the merits, you didn't review the merits again to make sure that everything was right. You just decided that if a year ago we thought they were good, we'll bring a year ago to now and say they're good. And so, what you have before you, I imagine that my client presented her materials in a timely fashion with her appeal. Do all of you have those materials in front of you? It includes a letter from her explaining why they are not code violations, along with some materials.
That was the original packet that we got at the last meeting.
Well, email.
Email.
That's okay. Well, I can share mine with you,
Okay.
and we can look at them together. So, So the code violations that are before you are numbers 3, 4, 6, 7, 10, and 12. That numbering is my numbering from a year ago that I used to make this whole process more convenient on y'all a year ago. And so we're still using the same numbering that we used a year ago on the June 13th, 2018 notice violation. Now, when you guys reissued or reaffirmed those 6 violations in July, no new notice of violation was issued, which doesn't quite make sense to me because, well, the state said we were starting fresh.
I do not mean to interrupt you, Mr.
That's fine.
Francis, and I apologize for doing so. We are considering this the rehearing of being kicked back from the state. So
Okay.
practically speaking, don't know if it makes a great deal of difference to your presentation. It's still the same issue, and the board has received the information you provide. I don't know if the members have it up here with them, but that's what this is. This is a rehearing of 2018, and the last meeting was a rehearing of 2018. And again, you know, we've got your materials.
Sure.
And you can make whatever presentation you like.
It doesn't bother my presentation. I just find that if
My point is, I think everything's going back to what
yeah,
happened before.
my point is you're looking at a June 13th, 2018 NOV that includes things that this board has already found are not violations and has rescinded as violations. And so that's why we have to go back to that old numbering, the 3, 4, 6, 7, 10, and 12, because there was never any new finding made and provided to the client. That's all I'm trying to say is we've got.
Sure,
you
and
know,
I'm not gonna debate you or get in the
Sure.
way, and I apologize for interrupting you
No, no
again,
problem.
Joel, but that's what we're considering this is a rehearing
Right.
of what it was before, and otherwise you can just put on whatever you want.
Great. So we'll move on forward. So you have before you, I think now, Mr. Hotek, you have those materials from the Burackers. I don't intend to go into a lot of detail. I don't expect that we really need a lot of witness testimony because the information is in your hands. And if you want to review it and consider it, you can. But, you know, it's an administrative hearing. Witness testimony isn't absolutely necessary for you to consider the materials. And so you have it before you. I just want to make a couple quick points. I came back here in July after we went through everything with the state, and I gave you all a memorandum explaining 2 reasons why I think this appeal itself should not be here. Because the root of this whole thing, Ms. Atwood's appeal, this board never should have taken in the first place for a jurisdictional reason and a timeliness reason. And so I'm going to be a broken record again because I want to make sure the record is clear that if this board never takes Ms. Atwood's appeal, my client doesn't have to be here because these violations stem from that one, and that Ms. Atwood's appeal was improper from the very beginning, stemming all the way back to spring of 2018. And you know, you may disagree with my position on the jurisdictional issue. You may feel that there has to be some recourse given to someone who feels that they have code violations in their house and that the building official doesn't act. So that's how you feel, okay. But I've not heard any good reason why the timeliness issue doesn't stay. And it's pretty black and white that the code requires an appeal to be filed within a certain amount of time, the receipt of a building code official's decision. Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code 119.5 provides that the applicant shall submit a written request for appeal to the local board within 30 calendar days of the receipt of the decision being appealed. My client contends that because there was no decision to appeal, that no appeal could have been timely made. Okay, that's a little bit more of a big picture, but if Ms. Atwood contends that the department's issuance of the certificate of occupancy was an appealable decision, so we're talking about the cert of occupancy, the thing that said she could move into her home, the thing that says the building official has inspected the house and has found no code violations, or at least has found some that will be remedied Okay, but we know at the time, and I can get Mr. Beam on the stand and ask him, when you issued the certificate of occupancy, did you have any reason to believe that there were code violations in the house? My expectation is he's going to say no, and I assume that all of you know that. So if that was the marker in time for which an appeal could be made, that was issued July 19th, 2016, 2 years before Brown's May 3rd, 2018 application for an appeal. The May 3rd application being the one that started this whole brouhaha. Ms. Atwood contends further.
2016, you said?
The certificate of occupancy was issued July 19th, 2016. Now, Ms. Atwood contends further that the March 30th, 2018 NOV that was issued to Buracker Construction was an appealable decision. That March 30th, 2018 NOV was one that the building official issued citing 5 code violations, which my client went in and fixed. It's one they hired Mr. Klein to help fix. That's why he's not sitting up there today. If it's the March 30th NOV that she contends is an appealable decision, because that March 30th NOV, remember, came after David Rushton submitted his whole packet to this board or to the building department to say, hey, I've got lots of problems at Kristie's house, you need to reevaluate. Well, Mr. Beam did that and found 5, issued that March 30th, 2018 NOV. If that is the decision that she's appealing, that there should have been more code violations in that March 30th NOV, she didn't file that appeal until May 3rd, 2018. Gentlemen, that is 30 days, more than 30 days after the decision. I explained all of this at our last meeting, but we still have 6 code violations alleged to speak about today. So, I've given this board 2 potential escape hatches to make this whole thing go away. I mean, it's been dragging on for over a year and a half, and I think in good faith we've tried to give legal arguments to make this all go away. Everyone's had the opportunity to be heard, but when it's matter of procedural issues, you know, this board isn't an equitable board. It follows the statute. It's a creature of statute. And if her appeal was not timely, this board does not have jurisdiction. So, that's the first point. Second point are the 6 alleged violations. And Mr. Beam has stated in meetings before, if this is a rehearing, I'll just regurgitate things that he said before, but when we were here in July of 2018, Mr. Beam said that the only reason he cited those as code violations was because this board told him to, which goes back to my jurisdictional argument that this board doesn't have the authority to do that. But that's the only reason he cited is why he put them down. That's why 6 of them, they didn't have code citations. He told this board, well, you told me to issue it, so I issued it, but a code didn't exist for it. So now we have 6 others which have a code citation with them, but I think the code is applied incorrectly. If you look at number 3, and I've got I took the effort of trying to, there's one here, I don't know how the quality of your pictures that you have, whether they're really dark, but there's one here that's light, and if you'd like to look at it, I'd be happy to share. So number 3, we're dealing with some deck posts. It's the same as in number 4, right? We've got deck posts. You heard evidence in the July 2019 meeting that those deck posts were moved post-inspection upon the owner's request. Upon the owner's request, those were moved post-certificate of occupancy. This board went back and said, well, that's a code violation. Well, the owner wanted them there. So I ask you, is the onus upon the builder or is it on the owner? Is it fair to hold my client accountable for something that the owner asked them specifically to do? That's specifically number 3. But if you look also, excuse me. If you look also at the code citation for 3 and for 4, it talks about deck ledgers. I'm sure Mr. Beam can tell you that under the 2009 building code, which governed this construction project, deck ledgers were approved. They were appropriate deck connections under the 2009 code. They were an acceptable legal connection in 2009. Look at number 6. I don't know if would you find it easier for me to show you the higher quality pictures at the end when we kind of move through it all, or would you like to see them now?
I think we're good.
Okay. Because I've got some that you can't hardly see anything, but then I've got this one where it's pretty all pretty clear. Pardon me?
I said, the picture is dark, but I don't understand what the issue is.
Great. We'll look at number 6. Horizontal lap siding shall be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations. Where there are no recommendations, the siding shall be lapped in a minimum of 1 inch, 1/2 inch, if rabbited, and shall have ends caulk covered or sealed. There's no contention that the siding is installed incorrectly. In fact, there was no finding that it was installed incorrectly. It just says installation problems. I don't know what the problems are. There's no contention that they're not installed with a minimum of 1 inch. Plus, we're dealing with warranty issues. We're dealing with the manufacturer's recommendations, not with the actual code itself. And to the extent that there may be a violation there, I can't imagine that it would be too hard to remedy. However, the owner won't allow anybody on her property to fix anything. That's something we'll get to in a little bit. We go to number 7. This one may be helped from a lighter picture may be useful here. Number 7 is talking about the guardrail posts. All that is cited as the code violation is table R301.5. It's not an actual code section, it's just a diagram. It talks about finish nails that are not considered to be structural connectors in a guardrail application, and it has to be designed to withstand 200 pounds of horizontal force. Well, if you look at the code, 2009 Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code, it says, the building official alleges that these are guards, that these handrails, you've seen those pictures, are guards. Statewide Building Code R312.1 says that guards that are located more than 30 inches vertically to the floor or grade, the guard shall be located where the edge is higher than 30 inches. It looks like you're nodding, like you understand what we're talking about. All right, so the first contention is that those handrails in the picture are guards. They're only guards under the code if they're located on a ledge that's 30 inches above the ground. Look at those pictures. They're not. They're not 30 inches above the ground. They're not guards. They don't have to be, the code says that they're not guards if they're not located 30 inches above the ground. They don't have to be guards pursuant to the code. You may disagree with the standards of construction, but I'm going by what the code says. The other thing, and I'm sure Mr. Beam can confirm this, is that the fasteners, the building official contends in the notice of violation that they're only using finish nails to secure them. All right, well, one, they're not guards, and two, they're using timber lock fasteners, which are approved by the building code as approved fasteners. You can use timber lock fasteners to secure those things, and that's what was used. They didn't use finish nails. They used timber lock fasteners. Building official can confirm that those are approved fasteners. So, 7 is not a violation. Number 10, we have the code violation alleging that the fireplace and the chimney system
I think in the picture, it's not talking about the guardrail, it says guardrail post. I think that's what we feel is not accurate. It doesn't say guardrail, it says guardrail post.
I
The
understand.
toenail, they're not.
I understand,
Attached to the
but
door.
the code refers to the whole system as a guard.
Well, this is talking about the post though.
Yeah, the post is part of the entire guard.
And it needs to go down through and either be bolted to the band or joist. Not toenail.
That's not what the code says.
I don't know about that.
Guards shall be located upon open side walking surfaces, including stairs, ramps, and landings that are located more than 30 inches measured vertically to the floor or grade below at any point within 36 inches horizontally to the edge of the open side. That's the code, R312.1. Guards. It's not a guard if it's not located more than 30 inches above the grade.
Is there a section of that deck that is more than 30 inches above the deck? The pictures show that there is.
Yes, it's over a walk-in basin.
It's much higher. There,
That's not what's in
where
here.
the steps are, it's very slow. But if you go on around to the deck, higher up around the deck, the pictures show that it's much higher than 3 feet.
You don't have those pictures in the notice of violation. The notice of violation only shows where they're not 30 inches above.
They were pictures that were presented in the beginning. I may not have those right now, but they were earlier pictures that showed the whole deck. That was part of the presentation.
I'm telling you what the client was put on notice of a year ago for which ones were non-conforming. It's only those that are not 30 inches above grade. And on top of that, timber lock fasteners are approved fasteners under the 2009 building code.
That's the rails, not the post.
Can we ask the building official? Can we stop Mr. Francis and ask the building official if the rail and post are part of the same system as part of the guard? Is the post and rail part of the guard, or just the rail?
It is an assembly. It's not individual pieces that are code related.
So that would mean that the posts are part of the assembly, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Francis, sorry.
It's the board's indulgence. The final one that I want to bring your attention to is the chimney. Now sorry, this is not the final one, the second last one, pardon me. It says that the family-owned chimney system does not match the fireplace itself, but is built by a different manufacturer. Frankly, again, that's incorrect. The fireplace system does match the chimney system. So in the materials that were provided to you, you will see the manufacturer specifications for the chimney. Everybody have those? Yep? All right. If you look on the second page of those manufacturer specifications, the first line under technical specifications, it says Flue Series, SL300 series pipe. Right? SL300 series pipe. If you look at the third page of the June 13th, 2018 NOV, you can see a picture where it shows SL348 pipe, SL348 pipe, SL348 pipe,
That's lost on me, also.
SL348 pipe, falling within SL300 series. And then another picture that was part of a very early NOV. We've got to go way back in time here. Another piece of the chimney pipe. You can see a little bit there, SL312. 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 Now these are, look right here. SL3. Oh, did I have the number wrong? 336. Yeah, pardon me.
I'm looking for the 12.
Yeah. These are the pictures that the building official used. So these are pictures used by the building department that prove that the pipe conforms to the manufacturer specifications for the fireplace. Fireplace system conforms with the manufacturer specifications. It's not a code violation. It's not a code violation. The manufacturer specifications say to use that series pipe. There's the evidence that that series pipe was used. Conforming with manufacturer specifications such that there is no code violation. The system does match the fireplace. Finally, we have number 12, where it shows a picture of, it cites a code about draft stopping. And it shows a picture of an empty, it's like, attic access, right? Everybody see that one? Now I want to take you back kind of in history here, and if you read my memorandum from a couple months ago, I laid the story out in there that the first David Rushton wasn't brought to the property to do this code inspection until after she'd been living there for almost 18 months. Right? Almost 18 months she'd been in the house before any contention was made that there were code violations. If I need to ask my client real quick so you have some testimony from her, whether that was closed up, that void was closed up when the certificate of occupancy was issued, I can ask her. But I think the fact that a certificate of occupancy was issued and that wasn't cited as a code violation that had to be fixed before the certificate could be issued answers the question for you. Somebody moved the plastic or plywood cover that fills that spot, but then this board is getting the information 18 months, 22 months, 26 months, however many months down the road, sees that picture, they just decided, well, that's a code violation, I'll whack the Burackers with it.
You have a clearer picture of it?
Yep.
That's not an attic access, it's a plastic covering below the electrical boxes that was removed, and he's calling the plastic is not a sufficient draft stopper. Yeah, it's not a fire barrier. The inspector removed that.
Maybe it's not an attic access, but it's a piece of plastic that you can put there and it's missing.
Looks like a plastic access hole, what it looks like.
Sure. The point is, if certificate of occupancy was issued and that wasn't cited as an issue, it kind of tells you what happened after the fact. Somebody moved it. And is it fair to hold my clients accountable for that when they hadn't been on the property at all for 18 months? And now they're the ones getting held for a code violation because that piece of plastic is missing. The other issue there is that draft shops will be installed so that the area of the concealed space does not exceed 1,000 square feet. Well, that garage area is only 610 square feet, falling way below the 1,000-foot requirement for a draft stop. So the argument that it's an insufficient draft stop is relevant because the size of the room itself doesn't warrant the need for a draft stop. So if it's missing because somebody removed it that is not my client, and the room itself doesn't fall under what the code requires for a draft stop. So that's kind of where we stand on all that. If you have any questions about those specific things, or if you want to see my own collection of a little bit clearer pictures, I'd be happy to provide them to you. Otherwise, you have my client's materials in front of you. And that's all I have for now, and I'll save the rest for a closing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Atwood?
I think that this would be here next.
No.
I can go next. I don't know. First, I would like to start off by thank you guys for meeting again. Mr. Francis, when you sent the memorandum of opposition, can you please state who you are representing?
I represent Buracker Construction.
Now, what does it say on the
It
memorandum?
says LLC on the right.
Yes, Buracker Construction LLC, which has not and has never been a licensed contractor in the state of Virginia. Okay, in regards to items 3 and 4, which are the alternate deck ledgers, I have some information here for you. It's actually 3, 4, and 7, I believe. Okay, timber lock fasteners are not proper to attach. So if the wind blows, that 40 pounds, it's gonna bust the guardrails right off. I talked to Mark Guthrie, who is a timber lock, he's one of the main timber lock people. I sent him pictures of my home. And he says installation was faulty and did not meet code. The timber lock fasteners were not properly used. None of the columns or the beams that go from the porch roof go under the decking. They all stop on the top, and some of them are too short. So if it is pushed, that guard, the whole guard is going to fall, and it's above a walkout basement. So it's way above 30 inches off the ground. Okay, next is item number 6, the horizontal siding. On siding,
Can we back up a minute?
Sure.
So these 3 locks, is this what you have in your deck post?
no, I showed him and he said there are some timber locks mixed in, but most of them are just little finish nails. And there are no like bolts or anything, they're just little nails just pushed in there.
Well, these timber locks, it doesn't look like, unless I'm reading it wrong, were approved until July 1 of 2017.
That's the information he told me to get off the website. And it was Mark Guthrie from Timberlock.
Okay. But your occupancy date was
16.
2016, so.
Right. And we did not move in until almost September. So once we got the inspector to come in, it was September of 2018, which was a year after our warranty. And when we found out that they were not going to fix anything and warranty the house, that's when we called in Mr. Rushton. So on the LP Smart Side siding, Code Section 112.1, General, it shall be the duty of any person performing work covered by this code to comply with all applicable provisions of the code and to perform and complete such work so as to secure the results intended by the USBC. Damage to regulated building components caused by violations of this code or by the faulty materials or installations shall be considered as separate violations of the code and shall be subject to applicable provisions of Section 115. Here is the instructions on how to install LP Smart Side Siding.
Let's, can you hold on to that for just
Yep.
1 second? Can you give that back to her? Let's mark these. So let's mark this as,
I think
Exhibit 1.
well, Joel, are you gonna have exhibits today?
All my exhibits were submitted in the appellant's application packet.
Okay.
So
So maybe we'll put, you know, your last name is
Atwood.
Atwood, maybe we put A1.
Yep.
Mark that one as
A1.
A1, and then this will be
Can
A2.
I have copies for the record also?
you have,
I need the first one, or this one.
Can you give me to Walker? And only one more of the first copy, please.
Yep.
This will be A2.
That'll be A2.
You need 2 more, you said?
One,
The
just
first
one
one?
more of the first one.
Quick. Is it the same thing? Yes. Okay, so let's give her back that extra one.
The second one too, or I got the second one.
Miss Atwood, you can come take those so we can keep our paper straight. Thank you.
Okay, so that is the LP Smart Side Siding, which the LP Smart Side Siding distributor has been out there. The warranty is completely voided on the house. When we started out with the house, there was like nail hole size places, and now it is collected water, and now there's size at the end of my finger. It's just deteriorating as it goes. Okay. Number 7, that's the same thing. The porch guardrail posts do not extend through the decking, are not fastened to the structure except on with diagonal finish nails. That shows the finish nails in the pictures, and you also have the timber lock documents to show that they weren't issued until later on, and he said they were not to support the frame. All right. Let's see. Next item is number it's number 10. And number 10, I believe, is the fireplace. Is that right?
yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. First, I want to point out to you guys, when the Burackers ordered my interior fireplace, they ordered and paid for a Heat and Glow 42-inch wood-burning fireplace. When we had the malfunction of my fireplace, I got the book that was left at the house, and it was for Vermont castings. So when they gave you the Majestic is similar. That is not what's in my house. I have a Vermont Castings BE42. I called Vermont Castings and I called Majestic. They are not the same, so the information they gave you is not what I have in my house. This is what I have in my house. I've called Platinum dealers and I talked to the distributors of both Majestic and Vermont Castings, and I do not have that in the house.
It'll be A3.
Vermont Castings and Majestic are the same company. They
No.
merged.
Nope. This became right before it happened, and I talked to the dealer, I talked to distributors, and I talked to manufacturers. They are not the same units. And the problem was, you can see on the fireplace, they had to bend where they connected at the top, and it did something, and that is what the inspector said, and that's why it created the heat to come back into the house. We did not want another house. All right, next is item number 12. The draft stopping. The picture that he showed you is a plastic piece that is at the main breaker box, the big electrical panel boxes. It's that. It is plywood that covers some big electrical cords that are in the corner of the house. And there were also 3 very large 4-inch pipes that were left open into the house, for which we got rats in December. that is all falling under draft stopping and all falling under fire stopping, because those open areas would just lead to the house burning down again. So, I don't know, that's all I have to tell you. I mean, that's the rebuttal for all the items. I have some more stuff if you need it, but I've talked to these people on the phone, I've lived in this house, and it is by far not perfect, or even acceptable. And Mr. Bean did not do his job.
Thank you. Mr. Bean?
I think you've heard plenty on these items. If you have any questions that you would like to ask, I think that would be more appropriate at this moment, unless you don't, and I can be available at any other time.
Going back to the guardrail post, not the guardrail, is toenailing to the surface of the deck an acceptable practice?
If it meets the 200 pounds force, yes. That is what the code says. 200 pounds is required.
And you personally tested this?
My inspector, I did not. My inspector tested it, yes, for the guard rails.
My understanding was, in all building practice that I ever did, that the post should go through the deck, or the deck applied around it, and bolted to either the band or one of the joists. So
That would be an acceptable practice, but it's not what the code says.
exactly, the code just says as long as it passes.
The guard needs to meet the 200 pounds force.
So David, was there areas that was over 30 inches?
Yes.
And how were those posts over that, were the posts over them sections fastened according to code?
They were able to withstand 200 pounds of force.
So they was, yes.
Yes.
Okay. And was the approved fastener used?
There is no approved fastener for the guardrails. It only has to meet 200 pounds of force. You can't just say that a fastener is approved for such a device. It has to meet that 200 pounds. If it meets it on site, it meets it on site. I will tell you there were other alternate means used for that guardrail to achieve that.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd just as soon go through the list similarly to what you just did. So you do not see item 3 then as a code violation? And I'm going to ask you then.
I cannot say that because I was informed by this board, which has the ability to approve, deny, or modify my decision. These code violations are based on your original decision.
So if I back up,
Yes.
I'll come out of order, but from your personal perspective as the code official, because, I mean, ultimately, we are supposed to either agree or disagree with you. So the issue would be, what is your opinion that we might agree or disagree with?
That was already decided by your original decision where I issued this notice of violation. My decision was already made with the 5. You stated in the appeals process that you found these additional code violations.
So not to put words in your mouth, but you're saying each one of these are not a David Beam cited code issue?
They are a David Beam cited code violation because I have to adhere to what the board says. I can't arbitrarily just say, no, I don't agree.
Okay.
Now, I can appeal those decisions.
If you were to appeal them, would it be a David Beam code violation?
If I were to appeal them, I would have appealed that they were not code violations.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's all right.
Just trying to get there.
I need to choose my words wisely.
I totally understand. The appellate made comments on item number 4, deck ledgers. And he cited the 2009 code, saying that the deck ledger, as constructed, was covered by the 2009 code, that their methodology was acceptable. You concur with that the ledger connection was a 2009 approved method?
Can you restate that question?
I'm trying.
Okay.
As I understood it, the concern was that a code later than the one appropriate to the construction of this house. First question, this house was built under 2009?
Correct.
Okay, so anything that we are citing needs to go back to 2000?
Correct, and the Virginia state law.
Right. So, there's, the appellate implied that we had made an error by trying to apply a later code to this situation, and saying if we had appropriate applied 2009, that we would have found this to be not to be a code violation. Do you agree with that, or?
That I can't answer because I didn't delve into the newer codes to address any of these.
I have the 2009 code here if it helps our discussion for him to have that.
The portion that is being cited for this code violation deals with girders supporting deck joists. It's halfway down through the code section. You just can't take it by the topic because the topic is not code. The description down below is code. So where it says girders supporting deck joists must not be supported on deck ledgers or band joists. Deck ledgers shall not be supported on the stone or masonry veneer.
I see.
This is the closest that I could find to a code section to apply to what you had referenced as a code violation.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you. That was
Any others?
Good, Dave?
good.
I think I'm good. I'm good. Look at one thing here. And I wasn't at the original, I wasn't on this board at the original meeting, so, some of the items that was on the list were they fixed? Because I'm not real certain.
Of these, no.
Okay, of these, no.
Yes, the original notice of violation that was issued well before this, those 5 have since been taken care of.
Okay. Mr. Francis, would you like to cross-examine anybody, or?
I don't
Or add to?
I don't expect to call any witnesses. I would just offer my closing argument. Do you have witnesses that you'd like to call?
Not right now.
So we can keep this one quick if the board's okay with
So
that.
Ms. Atwood, you don't want to cross-examine anybody, anything like that, or?
Well, I turned in all my documentation for you guys.
Okay, Mr. Bean, you good? Okay.
Okay.
So is this your final rebuttal?
Yes, well, closing argument.
Oh, sure.
So I think during Mr. Beam's conversation with you, we kind of, I think he did a better job of making the point that I've been trying to make for a year. So we've got an issue here. We kind of walked right into it. this board is having to revisit its own decision. And that's what the building code is trying to prevent. And I wish I wrote that in my brief. Because that is a great illustration of the point that I've been trying to make for a year about this jurisdictional issue. Because the board directed the building official to make these violations, to issue these notice of violations, my client now no longer has a fully impartial board to appeal to. Because this board is the one that told her those are violations. It wasn't the building official who did it. It was this board. And so now when she comes back to appeal, this board has to second guess its own decision, rather than this board looking at both Mr. Bain and Mr. Buracker and Ms. Buracker and saying, who got it right, who got it wrong, or how can we tweak it? Affirm, override, or modify. And the building code is set up so that if a building official issues an NOV and the contractor or the homeowner says, I don't agree, they can come to this board and this board can say, well, let's look at the facts, let's look at the code. And by the collective experience of many men who've worked in the construction or engineering or electrical fields for a long time, let's see if we can come and figure out where the rub is. But the problem we've got with this entire appeal is that it's that collective experience that decided that those are violations, directed the building official to issue that notice of violation, and now when the contractor comes to appeal it, there's no more neutral body for the contractor to go to, because this board now has to second guess what it decided a year ago and 2 months ago. And that's why I contend that the building code says that this board doesn't have the jurisdiction to issue violations. Only the building official has that, so that this board remains insulated and protected and neutral the entire time, and isn't in the position where it has to look at something and the building official says, well, the only reason I did that was because the board told me to. Because that puts you guys in a heck of a spot. And I acknowledge that. And I don't envy your position at all, because this has been a hard year and a half. It's been a hard year and a half for my client. She's waiting on surgery right now to get an infection removed. But the good news is she kicked cancer's rear end. So it's been a hard year and a half for her. It's been a hard year and a half for Mr. Bain. It's been a hard year and a half for Ms. Atwood. And we've come back here time and time again. We've gone to Richmond. Well, we can fix all that at this hearing right now, based upon the testimony of my client. Pardon me, she didn't testify, but my representations and the building official's representations. That none of these would have existed if the building official was given the leeway to do what he is qualified to do under Virginia law and under the auspices of the Warren County government. The other thing I want to touch on is the issue of remedy. Questions come up a couple times. What does someone who seeks to have code violations remedied seek to gain from this board? You all are experienced gentlemen in the field of construction. Excuse me. You're not judges, and you don't purport to be judges. And I expect none of you want to be judges. You want to be builders. You want to be electricians. You want to be engineers. The only person in Virginia who has the authority to order damages be awarded to someone is a judge, or maybe some administrative judge or administrative body. This board just has the authority to say whether something is or is not violation, or it is a violation but alter it. And so what's the remedy that the homeowner here might get out of all this? Well, because of all this is a creature of statute, the statute says that the remedy is the violation has to be fixed, or whoever caused the violation just has to pay enough money to have the violation fixed. Right? There's no big, oh, these violations exist, I award you, this much, and then $100,000 for pain and suffering, and $100,000 in punitive damages, and just money goes everywhere. No, that's what court is for. That's what court is for. The only thing the owner can get out of all of this is the directive from the county that those violations be fixed or that enough money be paid over to have them fixed. So the 5 that Mr. Boehm actually did find back in March of 2018, they were fixed. And then these come up and we order 6 more. I don't know what the owner wants here. My client has offered to come in, not admitting that these are violations. Obviously, we've argued here that they are not. But offered to say, well, we'll come in and fix it. They're not allowed on the property. Not allowed on the property. Well, let's hire Mr. Klein to go in and fix it. Nope. Won't take it. Well, we'll pay you a cure offer. I mean, if you just look at those 6, all of you guys are experienced enough to know the money it would take to just fix those things is less than $1,000. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? There's no money in this. And a client has taken the informal measures to make it go away. But I think it's starting to get clear that we're not looking for a fix. We're looking for a windfall. But that's not going to come from this board. So we got the jurisdictional issue. And that point was made very clear today with your questions to Mr. Boehm of, would you find these as code violations? Well, I found them because you told me to find them. Well, how is this board supposed to reconsider itself? That's a hard thing to do. That's why we have appellate courts, so judges don't have to do that, and Supreme Courts, so that the appellate judges don't have to do that. We have the issue of timeliness. I laid that out again. If the appeal is based upon the certificate of occupancy, it was 2 years late. If it was based upon the March 30th notice violation, May 3rd appeal is still too late. It's not within 30 days. Yeah, the testimony from the building official that these are your violations, not his. As far as the building department is concerned, these violations do not exist. They are not code violations. You have my client's materials before you. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to the other parties. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that?
My appeal to this board was based on the March 30th, 2018 notice of violation. I did not receive my copy of the notice of violation until April the 16th of 2018. So when I made the appeal on May 3rd, 2018, I was well within the 30 days. If I was not within the 30 days, I don't think that the state board would have just kicked it back for you guys to have a rehearing. I am not looking for a windfall. My house is my single biggest investment. I chose the wrong people to rebuild my home. First of all, Buracker Construction LLC, who I contracted, has never had a contracting firm license. So I have no remedy from the state. Mr. Bean has given them permits since 2002, so 17 years. And then if they were acting just under Buracker Construction, where the permit was issued, they didn't get a business license in the county until July 3rd, 2018. That was last year. I don't know what happened to the other 16 years. But I'm screwed all the way around. I'm not coming to you as a windfall. I'm coming to you as a citizen who doesn't always have the money to get an attorney. You are the people that we are supposed to turn to. Him not making a decision is a decision. By him putting my family in danger and not calling the code violations, he's doing that to every other household here in the county. Somebody has got to step up and quit isolating him and let him take the fall for not doing his job. I appreciate what you guys called, because I agree with you. I agree all 60 of them are code violations, because I've learned more about building in the past 3 years than I've ever wanted to know. I never wanted to be a builder or do construction or anything like that. But him not doing his job, somebody has got to call him out. And the Board of Supervisors should have removed him 2 years ago. because it's not fair to any citizens here in Warren County. He's given unlicensed contractors permits. That is not right. On the application, they listed Buracker Construction LLC. He changed it, which is a Class 3 misdemeanor, to Buracker Construction, who did not have a business license. So if I don't speak up, who's going to speak up for the next time that somebody's house is built like this and it burns down and kills them all? Because the fire stopping's not there, or the insulation's too close to the chimney, because he overlooked it. There's lives on the line, and this should not be taken lightly.
Yeah, thank you.
Our rules provide that the applicant, which I think in this case is Buracker Construction, is given the opportunity for final rebuttal. So, Joel, you have that if you'd like.
We have 1 moment to speak to the client.
You sure?
We will concede our time to the board and wrap it up.
I have one more question before we go to discussion. I've asked this question over and over. Did we indeed meet all the time guidelines that you know of for filing and everything?
For the, what are you talking
For the
about?
appeals and the process?
Well, I mean, Mr. Francis has made an argument not, and I guess it just depends on, certainly from the certificate of occupancy. What was the date that the appeal was filed?
The appeal was filed, I believe, on May 3rd, 2018.
And the certificate of occupancy was the 19th of July, 2016.
That is not what I was appealing. I was appealing the notice of violation, March 30th, 2018, and I received my copy by registered mail April the 16th, 2018.
All right.
Certified mail dates would come from the building information.
So you have testimony that says within 30 days of receipt of the decision being appealed. So you have her testimony that it was within 30 days of receipt of the decision being appealed. And I don't know when it was sent out or not, but that's what you have in front of you.
All right, at this time, is there anybody have any other discussion or any other?
Can I ask Mr. Bean one more question? I'm still harping on this post. My question would be, was there any type of measurement instrument that assured us that there was 200 pounds of pressure applied to these posts?
The test is the same test that we perform on every single deck within Warren County, that none have failed as of yet, and it's a force that we put against it at the final inspection.
What type of force?
That's a body
Was it
force.
Was it a measured force?
It's a body force, no.
Body force. It was not calculated.
We do not provide instrumentation to do our inspections.
That was my question. Thank you.
Dan, you got any further questions? You good? Well, at this time, I'm gonna open up for discussion for the board. Thank you. Dan, Mr. Hatcher, would y'all like to start first, or want me to start, or?
Doesn't matter to me.
Go for it, Steve. Prepared.
I don't know if I'm prepared. But I will. The way I'm gonna open up is this. This is my 4th meeting on the appeal board. And after the first meeting, I tried to, not the first meeting, but my very first meeting, I tried to prepare and educate myself as much as possible on how we should look and make our decisions on these meetings. And this has been a very difficult one for me. But in everything that I have read, the documentation, everything outlines that if there is a party that has a difference with the building official, that they are to be heard. It also, you know, I think as a board, the way I interpret it, and I may be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I believe that the state technical board will iron this out. I really do. They have the right to come in and override everything that we have decided. But I believe that our duty as members here is to look at the code and make a determination whether the building official has made an error or if he's right. We as a board are, I don't believe that we're supposed to deal with warranty issues. That is a thing between the contractor and the homeowner, as well as warranties. That is or not warranties, but manufacturer recommendation. That is something that the contractor, there are guidelines that the contractor needs to follow. I don't believe that the building official is. I think he has to take a look at that and make sure that it's followed. And if he doesn't, he needs to fail the inspection. But warranty issues and stuff like that is not part of this board's decision making. I really don't. I don't believe that. So, with that said, that is the way that I'm going to base my decision making today, based on that. We also, and Mr. Hatcher, I hear what you're saying as far as the railing and stuff, but we have to look at that as the code reads it or the code interprets it, and have to make that decision whether the fasteners or what was put in at that time met that code at that time, and whether they were approved at that time. I'm looking at one of the handouts that was given to us today, and I'm looking at a effective date that is after the house was built. So we have to look at the code for the time it was and what it reflected. Dan, Mr. Hatcher.
Okay. Well, let me say, when these items, I believe it was the July meeting, when those items were rescinded, I voted as a no. I think I'm correct on that. Items that I think that probably should remain is item 3. And the reason I feel that should remain is because of the joist hangers are missing. I think I read the wrong item, I'm sorry. Items that I think should remain is item 3. The floor and roof support beam bearing is inadequate to the right side of the porch. I can't even see a bolt through those beams, the beam that's sitting on that ledger. And the beam is attached to the side of the porch. probably with nails, without hangers, without joist hangers. They're just attached to the post, as far as I can tell from the picture. And the center post that is sitting on it, supposed to be, the beam is supposed to be supporting, is also down beside of it. It's not sitting on it, and I can't see any bolt heads going through there. So I'd have to assume it's just nails. And we all know that nails can turn loose. Item 4, I think that should remain. That was denied, and I think should remain. That's what I just spoke to there. The post is not adequately supported because it's scabbed onto the side of the beam, not sitting on top of the beam it's supposed to be supporting. I think item 7 should remain. And my feeling there is very strongly against these post rails. I don't believe 200 pounds of force, in my opinion, was probably not applied to these posts. We have no proof that it was 200 pounds. And so therefore, that is not a very, in my opinion, not an acceptable practice to toenail post to the subfloor or the deck floor. I think item 12 should remain because that is a fire safety hazard. It's an open space going up into the attic where, and apparently, and it could be very well be over where it's floored, so that would be certainly cause a fire draft situation, and that should not be an open up through the joist. In the last meeting we had, I don't know whether we got confused on numbers. There were so many different numbers, and numbers applied at different times. But I think some things that were rescinded should have not been rescinded, and some things that were not rescinded should have been rescinded. And I think that's water over the dam and was just overlooked. But in my opinion, the bracing should have been put on those stuff, because that was recommended by the manufacturers. The joist hanger should have been there, and that was rescinded. The header where the joist was cut for the, and it's a floor joist, it's a 2x10 floor joist, where it was cut for the flue pipes to go up through, is just sitting there. There's a requirement for floor joists have to be have diagonally bracing, and that's to keep the joist from tilting. Well, when you cut a joist in two and you don't header it off, this allows that joist to tilt. That might not be anything that's harmful, but it can cause problems. So it may not be a code violation, it's certainly not a good building practice. But I would think things like that should be corrected. The stair stringers, I think this is a big item, and it's noted in the inspection. And this person is a licensed inspector. He might not be approved by the county, but he is a licensed inspector that submitted this information to us. In his notes, these stair stringers up to the deck is just sitting in the dirt. There's not even a little concrete pad, a 2" by 2x8 by 16 piece of cinder block. There's nothing on them but dirt. He notes that they're already pulling away, so to me that is still the code, as we stated way back, it's very limited. It's not very. So it's kind of left up to the building and inspector to say what is really a good building practice and what is not. So those stair stringers, unless there's support put on them, are just going to continue to come down, and somebody may break their neck because they step up on it and the whole thing collapses. As far as the 2" minimum airspace, this has been a code thing for way back as far as I can remember. This required 2-inch space between chimney and framing. That is, to my opinion, and I think that is a code violation for sure. And the pictures definitely show, and the measurements show that there was not, but they got a ruler sticking up there. There's only like 1.5 inches of airspace between the flue and the chimney frame. But as I said, these items somehow was not what I was trying to convey when we were trying to list the things. And as far as the heat damage from the fireplace, I would have to agree with that. That was probably caused by the owner. If you close doors and you have a really high fire going, it's going to create, because it's got a little air space down at the bottom, and that's going to create like a suction, like it needs to be a fire draft there. And that's going to make that fire burn so hot that this could do the damage that's shown. So I have to agree with the contractor on that this was caused by the owner, not by the contractor, by the faulty equipment.
Is this item 10 that you're?
I think that's item 10. I didn't note that. But as I said, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items that should have not been descended were, and I didn't realize that in the last meeting. Okay.
I'll keep mine brief. I would probably remove item 6 from our list, but otherwise stand by the other 5 items.
So then, Mr. Hatcher and Mr. Hotek agree that number 6 is not a violation. And Mr. Hatcher believes that number 10 is not a violation, and Mr. Hotek, you believe that it is.
I think there's enough question to. We've heard conflicting information with regard to manufacturers. As the gentleman stated, we're not a court of law. We need to get down to the truth, and I don't think we have the ability to do that. We have 2 witnesses so I think it's an item of a big enough concern that would be a code violation if it was a true statement that it needs to be delved into. And if it goes to the TRB, then so be it.
In what respect are you saying it's a code violation? Because equipment was not what was specified was not supplied? Is that what you're saying is a code violation?
That you didn't have
It
integrated
doesn't
system.
match up to the rating. Okay, I understand that.
So I can't read somebody's mind.
I've had experience with closing the doors on the fireplace, and I know how hot it can get because that little venting down at the bottom of the closed doors, it's going to really create a draft. It's just like opening a door when there's a fire in the house. It's going to just shoot everything up. I think a lot of these items are things that is probably beyond our jurisdiction as far as things that should have been corrected during the phase of construction. Should have never gotten this far. But anyway, as I said, these items were rescinded and somehow it got by, and I don't know if that can even be corrected now because that's not even what this hearing is about.
Correct.
I just wanted to point that out, what I felt. But I do think 3, 4, 7, and 12, and maybe 10 should remain.
She said maybe
But
10.
because
So that, I mean,
We said we have the authority to disagree. We don't have the authority to determine whether it's a code violation or not, but we have the authority to disagree with the inspection. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, again, this whole hearing is backwards in the sense that there was another party that brought out these issues, and we were not the initial, over the past, what we've been serving since, I don't know, 2000?
Yeah.
We have never been in a situation.
Ever since this had been formed.
There's never been a situation where it's not been a singular building official decision that we decided, is it per the code or is it not? So from the get-go, we were on a whole different plane of what are we doing and why are we doing it, and these, you know, the statement that a non-decision is a decision, don't know that I agree with that. On the other hand, we are, you know, we've been hearing all this information, we've come to this point. You know, the parties are obviously still in disagreement. I think at this point, the gentleman's statement regarding another board taking, you know, these issues and advancing it further, it would be appropriate. But I think these items need to be addressed, and I believe they are violations of the code, so that's what I would go with.
Okay, and I failed to state my feeling as far as the timing of the appeal. It would be my opinion, if an appeal is accepted by the county, then we're required to hear it. So the appeal was accepted, and we were summoned to hear the appeal. So I think we definitely have jurisdiction. And I think we have the right to disagree, even though we can't determine that it's a code violation.
So, Mr. Hatcher, you and Mr. Hotek are in agreement with everything, but I'm not sure what your position is with respect to number 10.
Number 10, my position. Let me look at that again. I didn't put that down as an item I felt should remain.
No, you did not. Mr. Hotek did, but then you said that you thought number 10, you know, maybe was a violation. So,
well, if it's a question of whether the equipment was put in wrong, I think that's a violation of the contract, not a violation of the code. I think a civil lawsuit would have served better in this purpose, because I think that there were many items in the contract, at least what we have been presented, that I'm searching for the word here. The contract was not lived up to. I can't find the word right now that I want to put on it. So many of these items would not fall under code violation, but they would breach a contract, is what I was trying to say. Many items would actually breach a contract. And from what I can see, for instance, the roof that wasn't put in, the storage space that wasn't put in, there's a number of things that was presented in this whole case that was a breach of the contract if all the information we have been given is correct. There were many breaches of the contract. So to me, she would be better served to take it to civil court. That's all I would say.
Can I ask Mr. Beam a question, or are we outside?
sure.
Item number 10, if you have the handout that we have, there's a quotation, R 1004.1 general. Is that a specific citation from the code then? Factory built fireplaces shall be listed.
Listed and labeled.
So that whole paragraph shall be listed, labeled, and shall be installed in accordance with conditions.
of the listing.
So that's a direct road reference right there.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll go along with number 10 then.
Thank you.
Any
Do we
further
need a
discussion?
motion?
Any further discussion?
Where do you stand with regard to these items then?
Dan, just like I said earlier, I believe there's, I'm in agreement with some of Mr. Hatcher's that we definitely have some contract issues, warranty issues, stuff like that. But I do believe, I mean, the rails and stuff, we have to, as a contractor, as a Virginia State contractor, I believe in following the guidelines of the code. If a rail is a supportive rail, then I believe the fasteners, that the approved fasteners and stuff need to be in place. If it's for looks, if it's, I mean, you know, we have to follow those guidelines. But if it's something that's put up for looks, you know, and people are trying to save money or whatever the situation might be, you know, there's a lot of times alternative fastening methods to save money or something like that. But you know, it definitely should be discussed between homeowner and contractor. But like I've tried to stress the whole time, I believe this board has to look at code violations. That's why they call us a code council. And that's you know, like I said, that's my opinion. If I'm wrong, then the state detective review board's going to, you know, wipe us out and start over again. They have that authority anyway if you read the guidelines.
Well, so go back there anyway.
So, should I make a motion now?
Make a motion.
Well, let's, can you give us a brief, I'm going to assume that you're going to make the motion. I'm going to just take a couple of minutes and come up with a written resolution that I believe is going to reflect your motion, and I'll show it to you. So we can have a 5-minute recess.
Okay. We don't need to vote on it, do we?
You just sit there, there's a 5-minute
Okay, we're
recess.
gonna take a brief 5-minute recess, and you need to use the bathroom, get a drink, or whatever you wanna do.
So this is what I expect, or maybe put it in the middle of you guys, that you might have wanted to get to. And we have it over here, and we can change it to what we see as well. Is that probably what's gonna happen?
I think so.
Okay, all right, so let's reconvene, and I would suggest you would read this into the record, and,
Start talking about it.
yep. So you'll be moving to adopt that resolution.
As opposed to making a motion.
Well, that is a motion. You'll be moving to adopt that resolution that includes all of the language in it.
That would be your motion.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we have a bylaw that requires us to do this.
You're
this thing
reading
in
that,
writing.
and then your motion is going to be to adopt this resolution.
Thank you.
So you'll make a motion, I move that I adopt, that the following resolution be adopted, and then start reading.
Okay, let's call the meeting back to order. Dan, you wanna make a
Okay,
motion?
I make a motion that the following resolution be adopted. Whereas at a meeting of the Warren County Board of Building Code Appeals held on September 10th, 2019, to consider the rehearing of appeal number 2-2018 of Martha Buracker Construction, The following motion was made by Mr. Hotek and seconded by Mr. Hatcher to find against the appellate that there are violations and that those violations are as described in the notice of violation dated June 13, 2018, and they are numbers 3, 4, 7, 10, and 12. Mr. Hotek and Mr. Hatcher voted in approval, and the motion passed 2-1. Mr. Sefel voted against. Chairman Klein, Mr. Buracker, and Mr. McFadden were not present.
I so move.
I so move.
I so move.
And you second it?
I second.
And we'll call for a vote.
Let's have a vote, please. All in
Aye.
favor of the amendment of the resolution? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed as you?
Opposed? Well, I'm in favor of the resolution.
You voted
Correct.
for it?
The resolution is in writing, it says you voted against it.
It is, but
Oh, I see.
That's
Yeah, you're voting in favor of the resolution, but you
I
are
am
voting
opposed.
against his original motion.
that is correct.
Okay, all right.
Does that
We're
work?
good. Yes,
Does that work?
Are we done?
yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
We did. I make a motion, the meeting be adjourned.
We have a second.
Second.
This meeting is adjourned.